Hi, I'm Tom, and in this video I will show you all the options that you have when you are importing DXF file format into FreeCAD. I will be using this sample file of a floor plan to showcase all the DXF import options. This file contains several layers. It has got lines, it has got blocks like this bed. It has got dimensions, texts, also hatches, and some of the lines are dash dot lines. So this is your typical architectural sample drawing. Before we start, it's important to note that there are two DXF importers in FreeCAD. The default C++ DXF importer and the legacy Python DXF exporter. The default one is faster, it's more robust, but it does not have all the features as the legacy Python DXF importer. So in the first part of the video, I will show you how to use the default DXF importer, and then in the second one, I will show you how to use the legacy DXF importer. I'm using FreeCAD 1.0 in this video, and to edit the DXF importer settings, you may go to Edit, Preferences, and in the Preferences, you will go to the Import-Export section and then the DXF section. Here you have got all of the DXF import-export options. So here are the import options, and I will check and show this dialog when importing and exporting because I will be importing repeatedly, and this dialog will open up every time I import DXF file. Also important to note is that all of these import-export settings are applicable to the DWG files, but to be able to import or export DWG files, you have to install DWG converter. I have a separate video which is linked in the description box below how you can install the DWG import-export options in FreeCAD. So without further ado, let's get to the demonstration. The default C++ DXF importer. So I've got this empty sample FreeCAD file and I want to import the DXF file, so I will go to File, Import, and here I should be able to see all the supported formats of import files. So the DXF file is here, so I will select it and choose Open. And now the DXF import window will open up. If I have this Use Legacy Python importer unchecked, I'm using the default C++ importer, the new one. And here are my import options. So for now, I will leave all of these unchecked and the scale will be set to 1. So let's see how the import works. I will click OK. And you can see that I've got some warning messages. This is typical. My planned drawing is imported, and you can see that it's imported correctly because I had it placed with the global coordinate system base point located here. So this is important. So here I've got the lines imported, and you can see that they are imported as a shape object. This means I cannot do much with them, but they look okay and I can work with them basically. So first what I will do is check the scale. So if I measure this line, the width of the door, it's 700 millimeters. And that's correct because I'm using millimeters as my unit. So the imported scale is correct. But for this to happen, it's important that the original file has correctly set up units. So let me go step back, and I will go step back. I will take back the import, and I will actually change the units to use meters instead of millimeters. And if I import the file now, you will see that the import happens correctly, even though I have still the scale factor set to 1, because FreeCAD correctly reads the units that the DXF file is using. And if I now measure the distance, you can see that it's 0.7 meters, which is correct size. So this is nice. You will be using the scale only in case that the DXF file is kind of messed up. So let me show you. I will again take step back the import, and let me also change back to millimeters. And if I import the file, and I will choose this one, and let's say I will make the scale 2, so everything will be imported 2 times as big as the original DXF. So now if I zoom in here, select this line and measure the distance, it's not 700 millimeters but 1400 millimeters. So this is how the scale works. Usually you should not mess with the scale, because if the DXF file is correctly set up, it should scale up automatically. What is important to note is that the importer doesn't import blocks. So these, you could have seen that this bed was one block and it's inserted as individual lines or parts. So this is important to note. So now we have a blob of objects. So it's better to import and basically use the layers that are in the original file. So if I import the file, and here I will set the scale factor back to 1, and I will use layers. And if I hit OK, you can now see that the file is imported, and you can see that I have got a layer information. And let's say I've got this wall cut layer, and if I hide it, you can see that all the walls are in that layer. If I have equipment, I can hide it. What's important again to note, that those objects which were blocks, even though they were inside of a different layer, they are imported on a layer 0. So this is a bit of an inconvenience, but it just works like this. Now we can see that the properties of the objects are not according to the layer properties. So let's say, for instance, color. To apply the layer properties to the objects, I have to change the override line color to true. And now if I actually change the line color once and then back to red, the lines inside of the layer will be red. I've got actually independent tutorial on how to work with layers. It will be linked in the description box below, so you might want to watch that. So we can also change the line width like so we can work with these objects inside of the layer quite nicely. Now if I don't want to assign these colors here inside of FreeCAD, again I will take back the import and import again. I will use the same file. I can choose to use colors from the DXF file, and now all of the objects will have automatically applied colors from the DXF file. But now it's kind of confusing, because these were inside of the DXF file, they seemed black, as you can see here, but this is because they used the color number 7, which is a special color in DXF, and that color is either black or white depending on the background, and FreeCAD translates this color straight to white color. So this might be sometimes confusing. Of course, you can then change the color of the objects or the color of the of the layer to change it to black. So this is what you should know. And what I have not spoken about yet are the hatches and different line styles. Different line styles and hatches are not supported yet in FreeCAD. So I've got a dash dot line here and hatches here, and you can see in FreeCAD I don't have them here. So I could actually select the layer and change the line style to dash dot like so. So it's quite easy to fix if the DXF is organized well through layers. Now, so far we have organized the objects through layers, but I will now again take back the import and import the file again, and we will organize I will not use the organization by layers, but I will group layers into blocks, which will group those layers into compound objects. So here you can see that I've got several compound objects, and they are basically one object, and they are not named. So if I click this one, you can see that this compound object is just a wall. I'm not sure why you wouldn't want to use this. If you have got compound object, you can always use the downgrade tool to break it up into the original edges. So you have got these options, but I prefer to organize by layers. So far you have seen that we have not imported the text and the dimension objects. So I will now import again, and we have got options here to import text and dimensions. And if I check this, and I will use the layers and don't use the colors from the DXF. And now if I check this one, the import will take a bit longer time because it takes time to process the text and dimensions. But it will open up okay. And you can see that I have texts here, and I have also dimensions, but they are really small, but they are imported. Now to change the dimensions, I have them in a layer, so I can select all layer contents, and I can assign annotation style to them. So I will choose, let's choose this one, so it's a bit bigger. So you can work with these dimensions like they are standard FreeCAD dimensions. But the one problem that we have here is these dimensions, whereas in the DXF file these dimensions look correct, but they actually measure this point from this point, but they measure it horizontally. FreeCAD does not know how to import this type of dimension, so it actually imports it as a line dimension. So hopefully this will be fixed in the future releases of FreeCAD. And with text, I'm actually not sure how the size of the text is decided, but then you can work with the text and change it in FreeCAD accordingly. So I've got these room numbers. I will select all of the text, and I will change font size to 200, and you can see that all of the text is visible. And here you can see another problem, the rotation of the text. It should be like so. So I think this is an issue of the DXF importer FreeCAD, but be warned that sometimes the problem is actually the DXF file being non-compliant. So sometimes it's hard to troubleshoot. So you might encounter, especially with text and dimensions, things like this, hopefully not with the basic geometry. So now let's again take back the import, and I will import the file again. And what the options that we have, what we can import is points. You can load individual points. You can also load blocks, which start with this star, which are special blocks created usually by the DWG authoring software. And you can also import layouts. So if I check this option and I hit OK, and now the import will happen. The layouts are imported at the beginning of the coordinate system. So I can see here that I've got here the layout geometry, because when I look at my DXF file, it has got one layout, and this is the layout geometry. So you can also import this one into FreeCAD. Although if you've got multiple layouts, they are all placed at the same place here at the beginning of the coordinate system. So yeah. So these are all of the options that you have got with the default DXF importer. We went through all of them. The default DXF importer has got the basic functionality quite robust, but it's missing some of the functionality which I will show you in the legacy Python importer. But now let me show you how I would adjust the import so that it's looking as much as the original DXF. So I will only set use layers and import text and dimensions. And after it's imported, I will zoom in here, and what I will do is actually change the wall cut line width to, let's say, 5. I will also set up the layers so it changes the colors of the objects inside, so I have to change it there and back. And I will also select the room numbers, select all of the contents, and change the size to 250, or let's say 200. Okay. And what I will also do is I will select the lines above, select all content layers, and change the draw style to dash dot. So these lines are dash dot. And for the dimensions, I will again select all layer contents and use the annotation style that I have set previously. And what I would have to do, I would have to redraw these dimensions, or I could actually edit them like so. So they work, they are aligned like this. Sometimes it's easier to edit them, sometimes it's easier to just, in this case, this one will be okay to edit. Actually, no. Yeah, these two will be probably better to just redraw than to edit them. So now I would have to fix some of the other things, and maybe I would join these objects into a compound objects. Now the last thing you might want to do is, these objects are not so nice to work with in a draft workbench. So for instance, if I would want to join or split objects, and I would click here, it doesn't split the objects, because a lot of draft tools work with only draft objects like lines. So you can actually upgrade this object. So I will select it and upgrade it, and it creates a line object, which now this one I can actually not join but split. I can actually split the object, and the only problem here is that when you upgrade the object, it's placed outside of the layer. So you would have to then take these objects and place them on the wall layer. So it's a bit tedious, and also you have to upgrade them one by one, because if you selected all of them and upgraded them, it would create just one object. So one nice workaround is you can select all of these lines and use the draft to sketch tool. So I will use this tool, and this one created a sketch. So now I can delete these lines. I will delete them because I've got this sketch. And you might prefer to edit the objects using the sketcher. So here you can use, dimensions and all the parametric options that sketcher enables you to. But if you want to work with this object as a draft object, you can now use the draft to sketch again, and this one transforms the sketch into the wires and lines, which are draft objects, and you can work much more easily with them. But you still have to then move them into the layer, and you can see that it created not only lines but also wires. So it joins some of the lines like this one. So you would have to again break this wire if you wanted to just work with this line, or you can edit the wire. So now you can work with this floor plan inside of FreeCAD, maybe create 3D model out of it. This is the list of DXF objects which the default importer can import. So these are lines, polylines, arcs, circles, ellipses, splines, point, texts, dimensions, leaders, blocks, but only geometry, layers, and paper space objects. So you can see only 2D objects are imported. So now you have got complete overview of the default DXF importer in FreeCAD. The legacy Python DXF importer. In some cases, it is advisable to use the legacy DXF Python importer. You enable this legacy importer simply by just checking this checkbox, and then it's also okay to allow FreeCAD to automatically download the latest version of the DXF importer. And here you can immediately see that we've got several more options enabled, and this is the reason why you might use the legacy importer, although it is not as robust as the new importer. So first I will import with these options unchecked, and we will create just simple part shapes. Now if I import the geometry, you can see that the import happened, and the geometry is organized into groups automatically based on the layers. So this is automatic with the legacy Python importer, but you can also see that the import was not as robust, that you can see that some of the blocks are placed on in places that they should not be. So your mileage may vary, but for instance with this example, the legacy Python importer doesn't import the objects as robustly. But never mind this problem, the other geometry is imported as previously, so you can work with it, and it's also placed nicely in groups. So let's take a look at some new options that we have got with the legacy Python importer. And the most important, in my opinion, is that I can import those objects. I will actually use the layers, which works as with the previous one, and I will use to import objects as draft objects. So if I hit OK, now the imported lines will not be simple shapes, but now those will be arcs, circles, and lines. Now it's much easier to, as previously I had to convert these, but now I can just simply split the line and work with these draft objects straight out of the box. But you can now see again there are also sometimes it creates clones. So again, your mileage may vary, but this is very useful import option. And you can also see that the layers work and also the color of the layers. So it works the same. So if I change the override line color is set, so I can just change the color, let's say to blue, and all of these objects change their color. So this is nice. Another option is, instead of importing as a draft objects, I can import the lines as sketches. It's this option, and this imports objects, and if FreeCAD things they are a more complicated object, it creates sketch. And you can see here that probably this object here, some of them should be created as a sketch basically, but you can see the problems. The bed is not imported, and there is the bed is imported here, so this option does not seem too robust. Now again, I will take back the import and import again, and now I'll just import simple parts and shapes or draft objects. And if I import texts and dimensions, that's the same options that we had with the new C++ importer. But again, I had you can see that the rotation of the text is like so. Again, I don't know why. And the dimensions, actually, if I select them all and apply the annotation style to them, you can see that the dimensions look nice. And actually the Python importer imports even these two dimensions correctly, not as aligned, but like so. So again, something that the Python importer has done better. Now another option of the Python importer. These are the same as the new importer. Use colors from the DXF file is the same as the new importer. To join geometry, this tries to join geometry even more than without this option. Group layers into blocks, it's the same as the previous one. Use standard font size for text. Actually, when importing, it replaces the size of the text from the DXF file, and it changes it to the default one that is set in the FreeCAD document. So I think here I've got my text font really set to small. So yeah, these now have the default font size. So again, not that much useful in my opinion. Okay, so let's now import again, and now this one looks like it would be useful. Import hedge boundaries as wires. Now this should import hedges as faces. There's a warning, it might take a long time, so maybe I will pause the video. Well, it didn't take that much longer. I don't have again very good experience with this. Actually, those hatches are not created correctly. You can see some deformed geometry. So this again, from my experience, does not work very robustly. And the last option there that we have got in the import, render polylines with width. This does not actually import line weights. It imports width of the polylines. So this, in my experience, is not very used option in DXF files. So there you have it. These are all of the options of the legacy Python importer in FreeCAD. As you can see here, the legacy importer imports lines, polylines, arcs, circles, ellipses, splines, 3D faces, text and mtext, leaders and layers. So this is how you can import DXF files into FreeCAD. If you are also interested in DXF export options, subscribe to the FCB Lounge channel, as I will be releasing a video about DXF exporting options soon. I hope this was useful, and I will see you in the next one.